Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you are watching us on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our Director of Football Recruiting, Jack of all trades and analyst, Miss Deana King, and of course, our budding Jack of all trades. He is an analyst because he played lots of football in his life and has done I love sitting next to you, Brandon, at football games because you talk the game at a very high level. Of course, Brandon is one of our great podcasters now here at THI, Mr. Brandon Peay. And Deana, you're a great podcaster too, by the way. I can't leave you out on that one. We're here for part 3 of our 3-part podcast series, kind of taking a deep dive, having an organic conversation about North Carolina football. The Tar Heels are 13 games into this season. They have a 9-4 record. They were 9-1, so they've lost 3 in a row. 1 game remaining, December 28th against Oregon in the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. I will be out there. Looking forward to making that trip and seeing this team against the Quack Attack, a club that's going to challenge them in myriad ways, especially defensively. We have already done a pod where we kind of took a deep dive on the offense and hit on a bunch of topics. Did the same thing with defense, and we really talked a lot about the effect of the portal and some of the younger guys are going to play on defense. Here, we're just going to discuss the program as a whole. After the Notre Dame game, Mac Brown told us in the post-game press conference, because there was a highly negative tone in the press conference, he said, "Don't judge us now. Judge us after 12 games." Well, they got an extra one because they won the Coastal, played for the ACC Championship, lost to Clemson. So it's 13 games. I know there's another one to play. And I do think there's a chance that they can more than tweak the narrative about the program and about the team if they can beat Oregon. We'll get on that a little bit later in the podcast, guys. But right now, let's judge the program. Let's judge this team. Brandon, where is this team with respect to where you thought it would be? With respect to what Mac Brown said after Notre Dame when he said, "Judge us after 12."
Yeah.
Go ahead and judge them.
Well, I think this team, obviously defensively, they're not – okay, first of all, from what I thought they would be year 4 under Mac Brown, they have not reached that level. I think defensively, they've definitely not even come close to what I thought they would be with the amount of athletes and high-level prospects they have. Offensively, from a skill point standpoint, I think they are just as good as anybody in the country. But I don't think they've developed the offensive front the way I thought Mac Brown would when he came in. He brought in a lot of big bodies, but a lot of those guys haven't really gotten on the field yet. And I think that's the biggest hurdle for this team. Once they can handle things in the trenches, I think there'll be nobody they can't play with.
So give me an example of what you think that they absolutely must be better at in the trenches right now against Oregon in 2023 that they have not consistently been effective at offensively.
It's those North Carolina has this high powered offense. They like to spread you out and throw the ball, but sometimes it's 3rd and inches, 4th and inches, and you need to be able to everybody in the stadium needs to know that you're going to run the ball straight ahead, and you need to be able to do it without trickery, without faking it one way. And then you need to be able to put your quarterback under center, turn around, give your running back the ball and get a few inches. And then defensively, you got to be able to stop that. Because that's the small things that separate good teams from great teams. You have to have confidence. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling now, but I actually think
I ramble all the time. Everybody knows that. Go ahead.
I actually think surprisingly, the defense, me personally, I had more confidence when it was like a 4th and 1, 4th and 2. I had more confidence that the defense could get towards the end of the year, that the defense could get a stop than that the offense could just mull somebody over and get the 2 yards. And that's kind of surprising. I think that has to change before this program can be to where it needs to be. You got to get better at trenches.
I think to your point about the offense, and Deana, we'll hit on you here in a second with this, but Carolina, in their first 49 trips into the red zone, they scored 43 times, and they had 30. I can't remember the exact number. I was like 38 touchdowns, something crazy like that, right? Mm-hmm. In their last 17 trips, they had 5 touchdowns. So when we saw Phil Longo throw the option pitch on 3rd and 5 at the 12, that told me he didn't trust his guys up front to just power that thing forward, because they are a big 4-down guy. They're going to go on 4th. So if they need a touchdown and it's 3rd and 5 and they power forward for 3 yards, maybe it's 4th and a long one or 4th and 2, there's stuff they can do from that. They're going to go for it. So a lot of times the 3rd down call, with the way Mac thought this year, and he was very open about why he went for it on 4th down all the time, the 3rd down call told me a lot more about what Phil thought about the guys up front than what would be in the 4th down call. And I think that's what you're talking about. We didn't see that pitch in that situation in the middle of October, but we saw it in November.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I actually wrote about that. I think I actually wrote about that pitch before. When I think I wrote about that. It's like you have to, in those situations. Yeah, like you said, with Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, that would have been a run right up the middle. Probably would have got 9 yards because they were averaging that almost their carry. And it's like they kind of lost that identity about this offense. They're not able to just play. They're not able to just to give it to a bully and let him bully his way through the hole. I do think Amari and Hampton will be able to do that one day, but he's just not quite ready for that.
But in order for the running back to bully his way through the hole, the guys up front have to bully first. And I think that's part of the problem. It was back to what we were talking about in the offensive podcast. They have a lot of veteran guys that are probably going to be back. I know William Barnes is coming back. Montilus is getting NFL information. We'll wait and see what his deal is. We'll wait and see what the NCAA says about Gainer. Rowland will be back. Richards still has a decision to make. I think probably it's 50-50 right now on him. Excuse me. So I think that, that might not be a great thing. A lot of people are like, you know what? Like what we said about defense. Some of those guys haven't performed. Get the younger guys in there, see what they can do. I'm not saying those offensive linemen aren't very good, and I'm not saying that it was Jack McNeil, because I didn't say it was Stacey Searles either. But I wonder ultimately what is the tipping point for being able to trust everything up front, trust your power when you're in a must-do power situation. Because I can't stand teams that try trickery and try to go total skill when it's a power situation. I'm a big fan of the power football, and I think the teams that can power it, they can also do the other stuff, but they can power it, and usually they're going to be your better teams. Deana?
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, go ahead, Brandon.
I'm actually really interested to see how the offensive line responds with a new scheme in place. I don't know how different the scheme will be, like with the new.
I don't think it's going to be much different.
But it's just like the RPO. A lot of times with the RPO stuff, they'll pull it and then it's like nothing's there, and it's like, well, it's now you either the quarterback has to run or we're going to take a sack. And
when you run a lot of RPO, you can't just go in your conventional run block in an RPO right away. So I think they're going to do less of it, simply because I don't think they're going to want Drake to get hit so much. Yeah, that's my take on it. And also, if you look at what Chip has done in the past with his offenses, Mac even said he's multiple. Like, they're looking for a little bit more of the power. When you look at the new offensive line coach with what he did in the past, remember what Baylor did to Carolina in the bowl game in 2015?
Yeah.
I mean, they had bulldozers out there. And Baylor ran the ball really, really well for a long time. RG3 won a Heisman Trophy running the ball as well. It wasn't just throwing the ball. So I do think that I think that's something that they're addressing, and they did that with these hires. Now it'll be interesting to see if they can apply that to the guys in the field. Deana?
I don't know. I mean, I just think when we left Truist Field in Winston-Salem, they won the Coastal Division, and it's like something happened after that game. I mean, they were 9-1, endless possibilities, and it's like everything kind of turned upside down. The Georgia Tech game where most folks thought that would be a multiple touchdown win for North Carolina, and it didn't turn that way. And then losing to your rival NC State in a very close game, and then losing to the Clemson in the championship game. It's just that, as far as the the progression of the program. I think they were making strides, very positive strides, and then they kind of hit a pothole after losing to Georgia Tech. It's still on a positive stride. I mean, like I said earlier, 10 wins. I mean, are fans really fussing if they get 10 wins? Only get 10 wins? I mean, they got 9 wins. That's better than and they won the Coastal. I mean, I like Max says, he's always wanting to focus on the positives, and this group did something that 8 or 9 Tar Heel teams didn't do. They won a Coastal Division championship. They'll get a ring. They played an ACC championship. Only 2 teams has ever done that for UNC.
Let's hit on the win total a little bit later. I want to come back to that.
Okay,
I think it's a really good point.
But anyway,
I know, Brent,
it's just.
Well, let me ask you about your pothole. I think it was a sinkhole. I mean, they were 9-1.
They start little and then they grow.
Because, and the reason I think that, the next day, we get the modified Drake Heisman campaign. That Tuesday, we talked to players, and Kamari Morales says, "Hey, we can make the CFP." Drake is suddenly the talk of the country. And this program has to take steps just like any program. Go back to Dabo at Clemson. Remember the Orange Bowl when West Virginia put up 70? People like Dabo's never going to get it done. Sometimes you have to go through that crap. And sometimes crap is self-inflicted. And you have to learn how not to self-inflict the crap. And I think with Carolina football, they're still learning how to deal with success. They're learning how to deal with attaboys. And that, to me, is what we learned from when they walked off the field at Truist Field. And actually before they walked off, when Josh Downs said, "I can finally talk about Clemson now." They just exhaled. And you cannot exhale in football. You can't do it in the middle of the season. You can't do it in the middle of a game. You can't do it in the middle of a play or anything like that. You got to get the rhino horns on and just keep plowing forward. That's what football is all about. And they didn't do it. And I think that's the growing point. That's the sinkhole that they created. Now they could fill it up. They could beat Oregon in the bowl game, and suddenly they finish ranked, and Mac's going to promote that. It'll be the 10th 10-win season, all that kind of stuff. How do they deal with the success then? Because they'll be much more highly thought of going into next year, and then they'll have to go through what the team 2 years ago went through that they didn't handle well at all. So I think judging the program, and I'm going to answer the question now myself, judging the program after 13 games in year 4 is it's still growing up. I think there's still, toddler blankets and pacifiers around the program. In a sense, they got a lot of growing and maturing as a program to do. And I believe that the guy that's overseeing it totally gets it. And he gets it with respect to patience. And he gets it with respect to identifying every little positive, but also acknowledging every negative. And acknowledging a negative obviously is the first step, but that doesn't mean it automatically gets fixed. I think this is probably an area, and I don't know this firsthand. I have not had this conversation with Mac, but maybe I'll ask him in one of our press conferences coming up. But I think maybe the most frustrating thing to him is just that they can't handle success like you think that they would have learned by now. Florida State, number 5 in the country, boom, down in Tallahassee against a bad team. The following year, Heisman for Sam, top 10, go to Blacksburg, boom, all that's gone in a heartbeat. This year, 9-1, possible CFP outlier, but what the Bear said on game day on ESPN, Heisman for Drake, boom, it blows up just like that. I think that point, that blow-up point that they have been through, Mac probably thought they finished going through it, but they went through it again. I think that's probably what frustrates him the most. So I'm going to ask you guys, how do you get through that? How does a program get past that point? I know as simple as it sounds, well, they just got to win one of those games and not do it. But mentally, you have to do it mentally. The basketball team's dealing with some mental stuff right now. And the football program, in my opinion, has a giant hurdle. It's a sinkhole, if you will. It's either hurdle or it's a sinkhole, however you want to look at it. And I think that's something that they have to get past. So, Brandon, how do you do it?
All right, so this is organic thought. I never didn't think this question was coming up, but I do think if you really think about it, I think if I was a coach at UNC, I would kind of see some positives in how they've kind of progressed. Because if you think about the beginning, they came in, they won those first 2 games against South Carolina and Miami, right? When Mac Brown first came, and then they had the explosion. So each time they had the explosion, the stakes got a little bit higher. So the next time they had it, it was the Florida State, boom, explosion. Then the next time they were ranked number 5 in the preseason, boom, explosion. And then this time they were 9-1. So maybe next year when if they get to the 9-1 mark, now maybe now they take the next step. And then I think we just have to step-by-step progression.
But that's what Clemson did. Remember the old term Clemsoning?
Yeah.
Remember they're 6-0. They go up to Boston College. He was like 2-4, 3-3, and they couldn't score in the goal line situation. Yeah. And everybody says, "Oh, they're just Clemson." That's all that they're doing. And then they had the Orange Bowl, and then they got over the hump.
Yeah, and I want to touch on Deana.
And by the way, very quickly, I'm not saying they're going to do what Clemson did. But that's the prototype.
That's a progression.
Mac said it when he came back. It's funny. When Dabo got the job, he went and took his staff to Austin to visit Mac to see how to do it, right? When Mac came back, he took his staff to Clemson and to see how it's done now. So that's the prototype.
And another thing I want to touch on the point Deana made earlier about the win total is they have 9 wins, and I think what comes most disappointing to most fans is how fast they got to 9 and then didn't. If they had beat Clemson for the 9th win, I think the whole narrative, the whole mood around the program is different. But the fact that they got 9 wins so early and didn't get to 10 before, now they have to pray and hope that they get to 10. I think that's what makes most people frustrated. But I do think it's a good sign that they were able to be so focused for the 10 week. Like I said, the progression of how long they're able to
really
stay focused and deal with the attaboys.
Deana?
Well, what's the term that we've used for the 2022 Tar Heels? A bridge year. And I still think that bridge year is really intact. They will have probably the most talked about and possibly the Heisman favorite going into the season in 2023 in Drake May. And you got some guys in the portal that want to come play with Drake and his team. So there's some pieces that are going to be added to this program. But like I've mentioned in a lot of our off-camera conversations, Andrew, I mentioned to you the other day that, they got to 9 wins and everybody the Carolina fan base just starts going crazy, saying, "Oh, CFP, all this stuff, and you still got to take gradual steps to get to that national stage, like you said." And so I still believe they're on that upward trend of, you're year 4 of Mac. And so year 5 should be a year that North Carolina has to make their statement. 5 years, this is the time. You got a team full of MAC players. So it'll be, winning against Oregon will make the off season a lot better. They'll feel a lot better. Instead of 10-4 will be a lot better than 9-5.
Yeah, you mentioned
on
a
4-game losing streak. So
when you mentioned the bridge, it made me realize that I was off by saying sinkhole and I was off by saying hurdle. I grew up in D.C. area, so I know the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. When there's a ship coming in or a big boat coming in, the bridge goes up.
Mm-hmm. Drawbridge.
So drawbridge, yeah, that's what it's called, drawbridge. Thank you, Deana. I don't know how many times I've been on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge when the drawbridge goes up. One time I actually drove over when it was starting to go up. That was the day I actually saw a no-hitter in Baltimore. Anyway, I know I'm going to go Orioles in this podcast. It was actually thrown against the Orioles. The drawbridge is up. So it's not a sinkhole. It's not a hurdle. It's a drawbridge. So they're on a bridge to 2023, whatever this program is going to become. The drawbridge is up right now. It went up when they walked off the field at Truist Field, and it's still up right now. But when the game against Oregon starts, maybe it starts going down a little bit, depending on how they play. What do you think of that?
I mean, yeah, I think, yeah.
Again, this is organic. I'm trying to find the right way. Well, I'm trying to find the right metaphor for kind of where they are, because it's easy to say pothole. It's easy to say sinkhole and over dramatize it. It's easy to say hurdle. It's a drawbridge, because I agree. I do believe that this is a bridge to next year, and I do think they have a chance of being really good. And I also agree that the program is actually still in a good spot. I know a lot of people on our message boards don't think that. I know a lot of people on Twitter don't think that. They actually think, Mac, year 5 is it. Mac's got to move on regardless. I think that that's foolish. So,
well,
yeah,
you asked the fan base, would they take 12-0 and winning every game by 1 point? I doubt you will find anybody that would say no. I mean, the end issue is just winning the game. And, you have people that love offense. And then you have people that love the defense struggle. So you're never going to satisfy everybody, So, but
by the way, I'm going to
they are. They're 9-4.
I'm going to ask everybody out there watching, if you give us a good metaphor. It's not a pothole. It's not a sinkhole. It's not a hurdle. It's not a drawbridge. Whatever the hell you think it is, let us know. Let us know on Twitter, or just tweet it at us or send us a DM. And it'll be very interesting to see what some of you guys come up with.
Max
to go with your drawbridge metaphor, I think the main issue with the program is they were on this bridge and they were cruising, windows down, cruising, and then all of a sudden they hit the drawbridge. They got to slam on brakes, skirt, and then they got to stop. And now they are dealing with unexpected delays. But I think
you just do a sound effect.
Yeah, you like that?
What's that? Do it again. Man, my wife does sound effects sometimes, and I always ask her to repeat it because I can't believe.
Yeah, so I think they had I think the draw. They got to the drawbridge and they weren't expecting it to be, or fans weren't expecting the drawbridge to be up. They thought they were going to just be able to cruise right over, and now they have some unexpected delays. But I think the program is still on they're still on the right path to get to where they need to. And I like for 2024, just, because at the end of the day, if you'd have said at the beginning, North Carolina finishes 10-4 or maybe 9-5, would you? I think most fans would be like, oh, okay, I can see that. New quarterback, they would, I can see that. So yeah, I don't think there's no reason to panic. I think they're still going.
But the fans got a little taste of that 9-1.
Yeah.
And
but they weren't happy at 9-1.
No,
let's be honest, guys.
No.
Deana, Brandon, let's be honest.
Yeah, they were the worst.
We deal with it all the time. We deal with it all the time. They were not happy at 9-1 because they were barely beating people. Remember we did a Twitter cast, a Twitter space?
Yeah.
And I said, look, would you take like you said a minute ago, Deana, would you take every win? If you win every game by 1 point, if you win every game 57-56, guess what happens? You're national champions.
Yeah.
But they weren't happy with it because that's the thing I think that frustrated Mac to a degree. And I asked him a question about fan anger the week, I guess, of the NC State game. It was after the NC State game. It was the week of the Clemson game, the championship. Kind of misunderstood the question, although I could have articulated it better myself. But it was about fan anger as opposed to fan apathy. And when fans are angry, that's actually a good sign. It's a good sign because it shows that they care. It shows that they have passion and that they're burning for success. And when Mac took over this program, that burn wasn't there in 17 and 18. I know because I know what our numbers in traffic were. I know what our video numbers were. I know how infrequently people reached out with questions as opposed to now. So he's obviously done a damn good job elevating the care factor. But with that comes the anger factor. So when they were 9-1, if you're from Oregon and you're a Ducks fan and you're glancing at the standings one day and you see North Carolina win, wow, Mac Brown's doing a hell of a job there. But if you hopped on a plane and flew to the Triangle and just had a general conversation with Carolina fans, you think, my God, they're 3-6.
Yeah.
They're 3-7. And I think that that's fascinating. And I think that's actually a testament to Mac. It's because he's raised the expectations. He's brought in dudes. They have gotten to a point where they picket things that they fantasized about before. And I think that that's a pretty cool thing. So I agree with you, Deana. And I know this isn't a popular take for a lot of Carolina fans, but they are on the right track. Yeah. There are a lot of things that need fixing. There's no doubt about it. But Mac's not afraid to fix them. It wasn't like Phil bolted to get out of a sinking ship. Okay. That was kind of, okay, we're ready to part ways as well. I talked to Phil on the phone. He confirmed to us he was going to Wisconsin. We were the first ones to have him on the record. I had a conversation with him. Okay. And that wasn't a guy who's clamoring to stay at North Carolina and Mac said, get lost, or he said, I'm getting lost. That was a mutual thing. And I think that that's indicative that Mac will make changes or will try to tweak things when they are necessary. Hubert Davis talks about tweaking all the time, right? It's one of his favorite words. Mac doesn't say tweak a lot, but I think we have seen him tweak. But the hardest thing to tweak goes back to what I asked a few minutes ago before we close this thing out. How do you tweak that block, that mental block where you have some success and you exhale? It's like new money. Someone hadn't had money their whole lives. They're 58 years old. They win a lottery and they go spend it on all kinds of crazy stuff because they don't understand the value of money, right? Yeah. Carolina has to learn how to handle that success. And they haven't shown they can, except Brandon made a good point. They're raising the stakes each time they don't handle it. So maybe that's just simply their ladder. Maybe they're right here and the ladder will be out of the picture at some point. And each time they do that, the stakes get higher when they reach that moment. I think that's a really good point Brandon made.
Either that,
and maybe that is the metaphor of this program. They're climbing a ladder and they haven't gotten to the top yet. Yeah. They're in that process.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there.
Yeah, Deana, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, attaboy, AJ. Good stuff, right?
We figured out the metaphor. Never mind.
actually, I love what you did with it by saying that because you hit a delay when the drawbridge goes up, and there's a backlog of traffic, and if you're the 20th car, you're pissed.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're the first car, you're even more ticked off because you almost got over.
You're almost
and now you got to wait 20 minutes. Yeah. So that's what the fans are. They're all those cars backed up. They want to get across, but the damn thing won't come down, and they can't get across until it does come down. Yeah. So maybe we've overdone this metaphor, or maybe we've done it just right. What do you think?
We'll find out.
We'll see.
All right. On that note, one more thing. Bowl game coming up. Carolina football's won 10 games 9 times in its history. Very quickly, Deana, how important is it that this program get a 10th win?
Very. I mean, I think to get to 10 wins shows that, like we just said, the projection of this program, they went 7-6 the first year, 8-5, 8-4, and then they had that last year where they 6-7, and then that 9 wins is already an improvement. Getting a 10 is great, I think, considering what most projections were before they even played. Yep. Most Carolina fans thought they'd win 7 or 8 games. Because they got to 9 in 10 games.
Because Brandon has to do something. I got to treat this like radio. We have a hard break coming up, okay? Brandon, real quickly, how important is 10 wins?
I think it's very, very important because I think Mac Brown is one of the most charismatic and influential people that I've ever been around, like in person. And I think if Mac Brown if I had a son who was a high-level football recruit and Mac Brown came to my living room, he was pitching the 10-win thing, I think he could convince me to come on board, especially if my son was an in-state recruut. So I think it's very big for them to get this 10th win because I think the more stuff you give Mac to sell on the recruiting trail, the better. And I think
he will sell it. Yeah, he can sell ice. He can sell ice to an Eskimo. Yeah. I think 10 wins is huge. It would be the 10th time in school history. If you think about it, 4 of the last 5 would have been with him at the helm. 1 was under Larry Fedora. And if they do it against Oregon, people can change the narrative. Well, they didn't beat anybody. Can't say that. Yeah. If they get number 10 against Oregon, you can't say, oh, Coastal Division, they didn't beat anybody. That'd be a big-time win. Guys, 3-part series is in the books. Really, really enjoyed it. I think we just lost Deana, but that's okay. Brandon, appreciate you being on. And for Deana King, for Brandon Peay, this is Andrew Jones. All three parts. If you haven't seen the offense one, the defense one, they're on our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com. On our YouTube channel, it's Tar Heel Illustrated. And don't forget, guys, for just $8.33 a month, you can be a Carolina Tar Heel insider too. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks.